welcome. So let's get straight into it. Today, I'm talking about the new online version of my Fearless Public Speaking program. I've run it in person, I've run it online as a one-day video webinar. I'm introducing a program this time round, which has several other components to support the main webinar. So let's get straight into it. Now, with regards to public speaking, when I say public speaking, people often think about being on stage, being on live radio, being on TV, and that is part of it. And I'm also saying, particularly now that the landscape of the world has changed, that a lot of the time, public speaking is about how you're showing up in the place of your work. So Zoom, Teams, Demio, Big Marker, whichever platform you are using, you often find yourself having to be online. And actually what I'm going to do, because I am creating various resources for this program. So why don't I do that as well? Talk amongst yourselves for a moment. Right, so I'm going to record the audio as this as well. So just to recap for those coming on the audio and reading the transcript, I'm talking about the Fearless Public Speaking program. I'm talking about the fact people often think it's about being on live TV, live radio, being on stage, running webinars, programs, and of course that's part of it. And a big piece of that puzzle now, with the way the landscape of the world has changed, is about how you're showing up into contexts of work, showing up to meetings, showing up to Zoom, Teams, Demio, Big Marker, whatever it is you're using. Many people now find that they have to be center stage, not because they're leading something, running the team, running the program, but by nature of the fact that the world is working nowadays, you find yourself having to be in the spotlight. So the Fearless Public Speaking program is for both of those scenarios. It's also for people who are new to public speaking, because we're going through all the foundation stuff, and it's also for people who are seasoned public speakers and you want to next level your skills. So with that said, let's get into the presentation. Now, I'm using a slightly different format today. I normally use individual slides. I've actually gone this time round for a slide deck, which means I can't actually jump around and pick what's going to come next on screen, because however it is I've saved the file, that's how it's going to show up. So let's see how this one plays out. And I think I have to press that little arrow there. Yes, I do. So first of all, thank you for watching this. Thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it. And let's get this show on the road in terms of what you can expect from an online program. Now, this program will be delivered mainly live. The Q&A sessions, which is one of the bonuses, will be delivered live. The one-to-one coaching, which is one of the bonus items, will be delivered live. So we will have a one-to-one coaching session, and not everyone can make everything live, so there will be replay recordings. This is one of the first people who took my Fearless Public Speaking program in January 2020. Now, I was on holiday, I was in Gran Canaria, I was on the sun lounger, taking in the sun, sitting by the pool, reading something on my Kindle, and a message popped up from Rachel CK. Some of you know her. She does a lot with doTERRA oils and runs workshops, webinars herself now. And she said, I've just spent the day with you. So I tipped my sunglasses and I looked around the pool to see if Rachel and her family happened to have arrived at the same resort as me. Couldn't see her. So I then go back to the message, and she'd written then, I've just been doing your Fearless Public Speaking workshop. So while I was around the pool in the sun, Rachel was back in the UK, and we had sunshine. It was actually snowing here in the UK, and she was taking herself through the program. I'm going to tell you what Rachel said with regards to this, and I'll read it to you, because if you're on a device, it's quite small, and if you're listening to the audio, you will have no idea what I'm looking at. So here we go. It says, for those of you who were asking me about my big talk in January, and I shared my joy that I was so happy with how it had gone, Marilyn Devonish is the awesome lady that enabled me to breathe, think, and talk all at the same time. And now you can do it too! Exclamation mark. Whether you get nervous in social settings, on social media, speaking in one-to-one settings, small groups, or big stages, because she was on a big stage, this is what she's preparing for, or big stages, these techniques work. I'm tapping into what I've learned almost every day now. And so what's holding you back from sharing your passions or knowledge? And that's Rachel CK, educator, natural life coach, awesome mama, and oil lover. And I also say she's the bath butler. So if you don't know Rachel CK, check her out online. You will also, if you're following her, you'll see she now does lots of talks, lots of webinars, lots of live streams. And a little while after she'd taken the program, she was offered a radio show, and I was one of the first guests on her show. And just to reiterate, I taught the class, but I wasn't there. It was online. So if you can make it live, fabulous. So if you can't make it live, absolutely fine, because all of these things still work. So just to give you a sense of what to expect. One of the things I hear a lot about public speaking, people almost have that, well, it's all right for you kind of attitude. And I had this yesterday, I was running a I ran a workshop yesterday for an organization in London, lovely engineering consultancy firm. And somebody was saying to me that, well, it's really lovely that you're a natural public speaker. And I said, oh, no. I was terrified of speaking right up until the age of 32. And the team I was working with, they're fabulous. If you ever need any engineering works, they're called Carson's Consulting. They're in London, St. John Street, really fabulous team, very, very dedicated, really experienced. And so I was running a workshop about enhancing communication skills. And then I did a series of one-to-one sessions with 5 of their staff. But they were saying, what we're having just conversation over lunch, and someone was saying, oh, you're a natural. And I says, no, I learned this. So I really like this quote from Mark Twain. It says, it usually takes me more than 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech. So yes, there will be people who are very impromptu, you're off the cuff. And even when you are a good speaker, there will be times that you will prepare. And this is one of the things in my workshop, I call it planned spontaneity. Actually, I'm going to add this quote to the workshop. It'd be a good one for the workshop, but I call it planned spontaneity. Now, when you say those two words together, they don't make sense. There's a bit of a juxtaposition. It's like, well, hold on a minute. How can it be planned and spontaneous? So we're going to talk all about that. And I'm going to share with you the time it dawned on me. I was at a particular event, and I was like, oh my God, and the penny dropped with regards to this is why it's so good. So I will share that with you in the workshop as well. But I love this quote. Even if you're a good speaker, still work that goes into it. And if you weren't born that way, the good news is you can still learn this skill and not just get through it, but actually love it and enjoy it. So another thing people often say is, well, if I try hard enough and I push myself and I force myself, I can think myself out of this challenge, this issue, this problem. One of the things I know to be true of public speaking, experienced it myself, and with the people I've been teaching and coaching and training for the past, at this point, if you're watching this in real time, the past 22 years, is that your mind and your brain can get locked into position. Those limiting beliefs, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not capable, all of those sorts of things, and the emotions, the fear, the anxiety, the worry, they can lock your brain down to the point where you cannot focus, you cannot function, and that's where you get the old rabbit in the headlight syndrome. So good luck if you're going to force your way through, and you can do it. It just does not feel good. It's awful, it's stressful. And so I'm saying, look, there is another way to do all of this. So the Fearless Public Speaking Program in a nutshell, and then I'm going to expand a bit on all of these things that were the components and paying attention to the bonuses in particular. There's a full life immersion webinar, video webinar workshop, where we go through the course material, and we're going to do it in real time, so that by the end of that, you actually come out with the foundation of your talk or your presentation, maybe even the beginnings of your workshop mapped out and done, completed, finito, in terms of that first foundation. Of course, there'll be more work that you're going to put into it. Let's say if you're building a course, you're going to have to build the modules. If it's a talk, you may have uncovered things. You're going to go and flesh those out, do the research, but you're going to have the foundation and the blueprint of your talk or presentation mapped out during that workshop. There's also going to be the quick reference modules. Now, the workshop is going to be a continuous piece. However, there are times where you go, oh, hold on a minute. I want to do this, I want to do that. So for example, I've mentioned live TV, live radio on, yeah, gosh, it feels like ages ago. It's only on Thursday. Today's Saturday if you're watching in real time. On Thursday at 6 a.m. I did a live TV show, a 30-minute show on Talk TV, and I was doing a review of the papers, for example, and I got that very short notice, and there's work that has to go into it, because at 5:40, so around 5 a.m., I have to go and see what the front page news is of the papers, because you can look the night before, but it could have changed overnight. At 5:40, I have to send my 5 stories that I want to talk about to the show editor. They then kind of plug them in, and so that they have the template script of what we're going to be discussing in the news. And then at 6 a.m. you go live. So it's all very quick. There's a quick turnaround, and I only knew about it the day before. I did also BBC Radio Cumbria at 10 to 8 in the morning the same day. Had a bit of notice about that one, but there will be times where you have almost no notice. Hey, we're running a meeting. We need you in conference room 3. Or somebody has dropped out. Can you do this presentation? Or we've got this topic. We know it's just right up your street. There's a breaking news story. Can you join us in the studio at 2 o'clock today? It's fast. And so one of the guides I've put together is about how to present under pressure. So you may be under pressure of time, for example. And I'll also do some very quick modules about here's what you can do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to get yourself into the right place and state. So breaking that down so you can just go directly for what you want. We've got the live Q&A session. That is for those who are doing the VIP program. And it'll be a one-to-one private coaching session. So anything that's come up during the training, and it might be you're working on something very specific, then we'll do that. Mini masterclass modules, PDF quick reference guides, private coaching session, I've said lifetime access, and the portal. So in terms of what we're going to be let's break this down in a little bit more detail. And also with regards to public speaking, presenting, I'll take you through one of the bonus modules that we did at the end of this as well, just to give you a flavor. There'll be so many opportunities that you may be missing out on for things that you absolutely want to do. I remember sitting in the audience at this event. It's called the TCCHE, the Conference for Consciousness and Human Evolution. I was in the audience. This is when I was already into personal development. Lynn McTaggart was speaking, Greg Braden was speaking, hosts of other people. And I'm looking up on stage and I was like, I want to be on that stage. I could do that. A couple of years later, long story, we won't go into it now, but I got a call from the organization saying, we're looking for an MC for this event that's happening in London, and it's taking place on this date, this date. And I didn't actually clock at the time it was the same event, but I just thought, yeah, sounds interesting, right up my street in terms of spirituality, science, etc. And so I said yes. And then I realized it was the same event where I had been sitting in the audience going, I'd love to be up on that stage. And when you're the MC and the host, you're on stage all day for the full 3 days, because I'm introducing all the speakers, I'm doing the closing, I'm doing the Q&A, I'm doing the interview. So this is what you can see on there. It's Greg Braden, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and Dr. Bruce Lipton, and that's me doing the interview, the live Q&A. There's like 550 people in the audience. If I hadn't have got over my fear of public speaking, that would not be a possibility, and I would still be sitting in the audience going, oh my God, I wish. So it can absolutely change your life. This is me speaking at Kensington Olympia, and this photo was taken many years ago. I was speaking on behalf of Psychologies magazine. I was one of their media experts, and the reason I smile at this picture is because my big goal in October 2000 was to have the confidence to speak to small groups of people and be able to look them in the eye. It's written in that folder behind me down there. I wrote it in the notes as my big goal for my timeline therapy. So when I see this picture, thousands of people there, loving every minute of it, it's like, wow. However, had I not resolved the fear of public speaking, again, I would be sitting in the audience, taking in the information, kidding myself maybe that I was going to think my way out of it, but none of that would be a reality. So in terms of the bonuses, let us break them down in a bit more detail after I have had a sip of water. So actually that does remind me. 1 second. There's my fearless public speaking. Seriously, I'm telling you, the work that's gone into this one, and this is breaking down all the things that people said in the pre-survey as well. But I just had an idea, having said that. Something I will do. Maybe I'll do that as one of the little quick bonuses because it's very quick to explain. Right, okay, so the bonuses. Let us delve into the bonuses. Right, so bonus number one, in no particular order. If you're doing the VI program, you get them all. For those of you joining me for the live webinar, you save £650. For those of you who are on my e-newsletter list, you save £550. We'll talk about that at the end. But if you're doing the VIP, which is a bit the offer is on, and it's if you're doing the live webinar, it's $397 rather than $997. Bonus number one that is included with the VIP program, live Q&A sessions. What I'm going to do during the program while it's running live is do some group Q&A sessions. So you can submit your questions in advance. I will set it up so that you can submit your questions anonymously as well. So I won't know who the question is from. I'll just read the question, I will answer it. Because it's a live webinar, will be on my Big Marker platform. You can also submit your questions in the chat, or you can send them in the private Q&A. So my aim is to answer your specific questions about public speaking, about presenting. So that's the format that we will use. And the reason I'm going to do that, yes, I'm going to cover a lot and probably a majority of everything you're going to want to know on those full immersion sessions. And I have incorporated the data, the information from those of you who completed the pre-surveys. Thank you very much for doing that. And there will still be things individually that may be the nuances for you. So we've got the free Q&A sessions. Bonus number two is the mini masterclass module. So I ran one of those today. I'm running a final version on Monday. Now, those may be different, slightly different to those that go into the program because I'm actually talking about the program, but if somebody's in it, they know about the program. Well, actually, though, I could use it for a good intro module. I'll think about that. But it was imposter syndrome. So looking at imposter syndrome, what I've called unmasking it, also talking about the fact that it's often high achievers who suffer from imposter syndrome. That was one of the bonus modules. So I ran that today. It's a 90-minute module. So I'll do a few of those based on some of the subjects that came up or were raised perhaps during the surveys, other things that I know are relevant to public speaking, but not necessarily part of the core. And so those will be bonus modules, so you can just go straight to those and access those. Bonus number three is the PDF quick reference guide. So when I was talking about, let's say, the last minute invitation to do something live, many people, I'm just like, cool, woohoo, let me check if I'm free. But that's because I enjoy public speaking now. But if that happens, many people find that they're under pressure. So there'll be a quick reference guide where you just go to that. I've shared some steps, outlined some processes. My aim is to keep those to 2 to 3 pages so that they do what they say on the tin. They're really quick. You go straight in, get the information you need, and off you go, implement it, put it into practice. Bonus number 4 is the private coaching session. So each person that books the VIP program will get a one-to-one private coaching session with me. We'll do that online or do it by telephone, however you prefer. And that is, as I said earlier, to go into some of the specific things that relate to you that might not be relevant to the rest of the group, or you don't want to share with the group. So that will be a one-to-one session we'll be doing. Bonus number 5 is lifetime access. So if you're purchasing the general program, and it is now live, you can, and I'll share the link in a bit, and there's a QR code. So it's live, you can book now. General program is 12 months access. VIP, you get lifetime access to the course materials, the recordings, the guides, etc. So that's another bonus there. And number 6, this is optional. I'm laughing because for some people it'll be like, oh my God, that's my worst nightmare. And actually for other people, you might not think it's a great idea, but you really might want to do it if you're somebody who procrastinates or who benefits from accountability. So there's the accountability portal. The way it works is it's online and you can create to-do lists and checklists and all of those sorts of things. However, when you put something into the to-do list, it will, until you've ticked it off, you'll get email reminders from the system reminding you about what you said you've done. Now, of course, you could ignore those emails if you wanted to, but why would you do that? You've said it, you're the one who set it up. Also, there's a setting where you can make your to-do list visible to me. And so I can then have a look at it and go, They said they were going to be doing XYZ. They said they wanted to do it by such and such a date. They haven't done it yet. Let me ping them a little nudge and say, hey, how are you going? Is it that you just didn't remember to tick it off? And there is another setting where it can be set so the whole group can see everything. So we can all see, everyone can see what they've said they were going to do, and you get that group influence as well. And I find that even if no one gets in touch with you with regards to accountability, the mere fact that other people, you've declared it, let's put it that way, other people know, there's a chance. And they might go, hey, how did you get on with XYZ? Because it was on your to-do list. So that's optional. And those 3 settings, you can decide how it's going to be set up. But that's another bonus for those of you who are doing the VIP program, if you'd like that added accountability and a way to track what you're doing online. It's a really brilliant option, but it's optional because I know not everybody will want to do that. So that is that. So those are the key bonuses. We've also got the mini module. So the one I ran it today, was the imposter syndrome piece. I'm going to run a final one of those on Tuesday for those of you who watches that in real time. It's free if you want to join us. It's going along the bottom of the ticker tape. If you go to my main website, click the What's New button, you'll see a link where if you're watching this in real time, you can book yourself on that. And we were talking about imposter syndrome. One of the things that one of the ways people often describe it with imposter syndrome is they are waiting for the other shoe to drop. They feel as though they're in a position which is too big for them. They might be suited and booted and in a big position, but they feel tiny and as though they don't deserve to be there. So that's the module that's going to be uploaded as one of the bonus modules. In terms of that particular module, for example, we looked at the definition and root cause of imposter syndrome, exploring 2 of the key types that I often see, identified the impact in terms of personal development and your professional life and development. I shared 8 very practical things that you can do, practical strategies you can implement, put them into practice straight away. There were also some additional resources and tools. I shared with you the things that I like to use and did use to resolve the imposter syndrome. And then we talk about next steps for the Fearless Public Speaking program. And there is a free bonus included in that as well. We also talk about the impact in a little bit more detail, going into some of the things that people have said that they will recognize, that they will experience, the self-sabotage, turning down or missing out on opportunities, stunting your own career progression. I had someone, for example, who filled out the survey and said they were invited to do a talk at their university, going back as an alumni, and they turned it down because of the fear of public speaking. For example, that's one of the things that can happen. Missing deadlines, which is why and the perfectionism does kind of feed into that as well. Look to what will happen if you don't resolve it, if you leave things as they are with the imposter syndrome. And the reason I put the 2 together, it had come up in the pre-surveys, and then the more I thought about it, it's like, oh, actually, yes, the 2 are often very closely linked. So that's why I did the pre-surveys, to have people bring things up that I might not have necessarily thought of including because I don't really think about them anymore. That was one of them. I thought it's not necessarily core material, but it would make for a brilliant bonus. And so we then talked about some of the things that can happen. And with public speaking, for example, one of the things is the rabbit in the headlights. That is often associated because people get to a point, it's like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be here. Have they made a mistake? Was I invited by accident? And so we talked about the constant anxiety, the worry, the stress, and the regrets that can come with that as well, in terms of missing out on things or self-sabotaging, regretting it. So we got into all of that. And then I just shared a few examples with people about, and this was the first person to actually say the words to me in terms of a coaching session. This was probably around about 2003, 2004. Woman, extremely accomplished, very well educated, running a really big team for an investment bank in London, multi-million-pound projects. And she said, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'm fearful every day that I am going to be found out and that I'm an imposter, because she didn't believe that she deserved to be there. And so she said to me she was suffering from imposter syndrome. And I think it was the first time I heard the word in the context of a coaching session. I was like, oh, that's interesting. But that's the way she described it. So on the outside, suited and booted, but on the inside, not feeling inadequate, and feeling as though she was, any minute now, she was going to be exposed. Oftentimes it shows up that people have got really great ideas. Now, this will be the imposter syndrome and also the public speaking piece. This was one of my clients who attended my photo reading workshop. She worked at an investment bank in the City of London, worked in the IT division, so male dominated industry, very capable woman, very well educated, lots of brilliant ideas, and used to sit quietly in meetings, not say a word. But she'd have the ideas. And I don't know if you've ever had that thing where you think of an idea, you don't say it, someone else comes out with something that is a smidgen, a fraction of yours, is almost half baked, and yours is almost fully formed, and everybody goes, oh my god, that's amazing, that's brilliant, fantastic. Now you can't say anything, because if you do, it's going to sound like you're trying to jump on the bandwagon, take over their idea, or rain on their parade. This was her life, never contributing. But of course, she's thinking about promotion, had been passed over a few times. No surprises there when she's not contributing anything. Well, she's working, but she's not contributing in a visible way at team meetings, events, etc. This was a couple of months after she'd attended the photo reading workshop. We did a couple of one-to-one coaching sessions. I think there were three in that package. So she says, Marilyn, I don't know what you've done to me, exclamation mark. I've moved so far from where I was 2 months ago when I did the course, and I got so much more than just photo reading. Thank you. Because she was in a meeting, had an idea, used all the skills that I had taught her, spoke up. On the way out of the meeting, her boss catches up to her in the corridor and says, oh, brilliant contributions at the meeting today. A couple of her colleagues will say, what's happened to you? Oh my God, you found your voice. And that was just within the space of a few weeks. So it is possible to turn these things around. And this was the first time I'd worked with someone who was so senior, you would think it would be natural to them. They were the finance director of a really big UK electronics company. I won't say which one, even though this was, gosh, 20 odd years ago now. And he had been asked to do a presentation. Well, it wasn't asked to do, it's part of the job. He had to go to the London Stock Exchange to discuss their figures and the forward projections, how they do the forward projections. Terrified. They did a dry run in the works canteen, and he froze and did the rabbit in the headlights. So he's mid-presentation, feeling terrible about doing, this is obviously before he worked with me, feeling terrible about doing it. And then he did the, if I were to do that on a live webinar and not tell you what was coming up, people would start messaging going, Marilyn, your screen is frozen, we can't hear you. Because it's actually quite a lot. It's only a few seconds, but it feels like a long time. It feels like a long time to the person it's happening to. It feels like really long. And for the audience, after that first second or two, they start to feel a bit uncomfortable. Now, with this person here who then became my client, it was so awful that one of his colleagues was in the audience. He walked up on stage, kind of nudged my client aside and said, oh, this is my section. And then he delivered the rest of the presentation, because my client was just like, whoa. And that's why he thought, I cannot continue to live like this. I cannot show up at work like this. And so we did a one-day breakthrough session. And then he went back. As he was leaving, I remember he walked out the door. I'm pointing over there because that's where the door is. He walked out the door and he said, all I need now is some practice. And I smiled and said, be careful what you wish for. The next day, he's in the office and said, we're going to do another. There were people who missed it. We're going to do another dry run. Again, we're going to be in the canteen. Now, because he'd already run one, sort of, froze, he was thinking they might get 20 to 30 people turn up. They had over 200 people. Some of them might have heard what happened and came to see if it would happen again. But nonetheless, there were several hundred people there. So he stands up, does the presentation flawlessly. At the end, his colleague who had saved him when he did the rabbit in the headlights came up and said, what happened to you? That was great. And there were members of staff, even though they ordinarily wouldn't be that interested in listening to figures and numbers and all the rest of it, and, you know, PE ratios and all that sort of stuff. People saying, oh my gosh, that was so helpful. That was so useful. Can we make this a regular thing? Can we run it again? So he went from absolutely terrified to being center stage, being very calm and loving it. And some of the tools and processes that I used with him, I've talked about it in the free imposter syndrome webinar, and we're not just going to talk about it on the Fearless Public Speaking, we're going to do it. So that was that one. There's also the free download, and again, that was for people who attended the live webinar. So if you're joining us on Tuesday, you'll get that as well. It's a 10-page document about perfectionism. Again, perfectionism can impact public speaking. It's not necessarily core, and it's still really important. So there's a 10-page document that breaks it down, looks at some of the research that's been around for a while, and shares with you some strategies. So that's 10 pages. You get to download that at the on the free intro webinar. So if you're joining us on Tuesday, you'll get a copy of that. And so there'll be those types of downloads. And for anyone who's coming into this a bit later and going, well, it's all right for you, just a reminder, this was my personality right up until the age of 32. Quiet, shy, lacking in confidence, really low self-esteem. And I described it as being on the outside looking in, as though I was a spectator. It's like the kid in the candy store. I'm looking at everyone in the game, having a great time, and I'm on the outside because I didn't have the confidence to do any of these things. And for those of you I've never met before, very briefly, a little bit of who I am and what I do now, because of course that's changed. I could talk for England and America and the whole world, and I often do. So I had a very traditional background in a business studies degree, postgraduate marketing diploma. I'll say a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Because I was very quiet and shy, number one, I wanted a job that gave me a bit more, I called it gravitas. Now, at the time, even though I was qualified up to the eyeballs, I was working as a secretary, and I did that for 5 years after I graduated. Nothing wrong with being a secretary. I still use those skills to this day. Fabulous. Problem was, I didn't want to be a secretary. So I decided to give up. I was working at an investment bank at that time. Again, in a very nice role. It was an administrative support role, however. So I decided I was going to give that up and study to be a chartered accountant, because I figured that would give me gravitas, and it would be a job that I would enjoy, because I did accountancy A-level, studied accountancy as part of my degree. However, I figured I would not need to speak to clients. I could just be behind the scenes, pushing papers, pressing the buttons, doing the numbers, but I wouldn't have to interact. And of course, as soon as I started, after about 6 months of starting the ACCA, and then realizing that, holy smoke, to be a decent accountant, you've actually got to talk to people. I was like, oh no. And that's when I signed up for I signed up for a communication skills course. That's what I kind of thought I was getting. It turned out it was so much more. I did try to get a refund. That's a whole other story, but the rest, as they say, is history. So I went from that to what I've been doing now since October 2000, and became a master practitioner trainer of NLP, trainer of hypnosis, trainer of timeline therapy, been out to Huna a few times to study Hawaiian Huna. And I'm trained in about 20 different modalities: EFT, DNA theta healing, FLP, future life progression, past life regression, archetypal profiling, soul plan reading. I'm now a soul plan trainer. You name it, it's probably in there. Of course, the photo reading, accelerated learning, and everything in between. And public speaking is one of my favorite things to do. In addition to all of that, I've also been a freelance writer since 2003, because when you find your voice, it may not be that speaking is the main medium that you use. It may be that you choose to express yourself in other ways. But I know people who are terrified of public speaking, that then spills out into other areas, and they wouldn't dream of writing anything either, because they perceive that to be in the same category as the public speaking. And one of the things that I found is when you unlock all of that, all of these other wonderful mediums are then available to you. So I started off writing about emotional health and well-being. I wrote for Spirit and Destiny magazine for 7 years. So I had an agony aunt column that then transitioned into a coaching column, where rather than receiving the letters and writing a response, I would actually coach one of their readers telephone or online, and the reader would then say the problem, the reader would write about it. And actually, sadly, for those watching in real time, yesterday Spirit and Destiny magazine announced that this month's edition is their final edition. Now, I did know that a few weeks ago, because I had an article coming out in May. That will now not happen. That's really sad, but I wrote for them for 7 years. But if you're a Spirit and Destiny fan, get out there and pick up the issue that's just landed, because it's going to be the last one. The magazine is no more. So been doing that since 2003. Also now write for business publications. When I say I've written probably thousands of articles, I'm not joking. In 2021, I wrote over 100 articles. And I know that because finally I was like, hold on a minute, why don't I put these on a spreadsheet and actually keep track of them? Because I often write them, on with the next thing, write another one, on with the next thing, write another one, on with the next thing. And I'm not really tracking them. Occasionally I'll get to see them, or somebody will say, oh my God, I was reading Forbes and you were in it. That's great. But I decided to keep a spreadsheet in 2021, and I wrote over 100 articles. A lot of them, but seriously, so this is just a small, tiny smidgen, but things like Forbes, The Guardian, The Times, Chartered Management Institute, Huffington Post, you name it, is probably in there. Lots of stuff, BBC Radio, the television, none of the TV stuff is on there, but you get the gist in terms of being in the media and being a media commentator. Again, that opened up with the public speaking. I'm also a corporate trainer. That's wildly out of date. There's probably 50 or so workshops that I've designed and delivered, but things like effective communication skills, critical thinking, decision making, creative thinking, finance for finance managers, introduction to project management, you name it, is probably in there. So again, none of that would be happening if I didn't get over the fear of public speaking. And also with regards to that, I know it sounds a bit weird, but I have been a remote working implementation consultant since 2003, which means going into organizations to design, write, and implement remote and flexible working policy and strategy. Now, of course, in the last few years, remote working is all over the place, but yes, I've been specializing in that area since 2003. And I co-authored 2 books on that subject in March and April of 2020. They are some things people watching go, oh, can I get the PDF? I'm like, no, they're physical books. I don't make anything from when they're sold, but I would recommend you have a read. One of them is Unlocked. It's called From Surviving to Thriving. And the other one was Running a Business in Times of Crisis. So I've written chapters in there on remote working. So you can grab those. And just in case you think I was quiet and shy, because of my background and qualifications, and maybe I wasn't qualified to do the things I wanted to do, just a little recap on that also, because that's one. Well, it's all right for you, Marilyn, or they'll think there were things going on that meant I couldn't have done what I wanted to do. But I had a business studies degree, postgraduate secretarial diploma, postgraduate marketing diploma with the Chartered Institute of Marketing, had a teaching certificate as a way to try and force my way into being okay with doing this sort of stuff. I had, when I graduated, I had 6 years solid work experience with the House of Fraser and Harrods Group. I worked in the credit office where people would sign up for what back in those days you call them HP hire purchase agreements. I worked in the cash office, and I worked in the export department. So these were really serious jobs. I also, as a secretary, used to work as a director's PA in all of the banks on Colmore Row in Birmingham. If you know Birmingham, Colmore Row is the row where all of the big banks are. And that's because of the secretarial qualifications. I worked as a temp when I was in university, and on every Saturday I worked at House of Fraser. So I'd get the train from Coventry back into London, and either be in Kensington or sometimes in Knightsbridge, that's where Harrods is. And I did that every Saturday for the whole time I was at university. I only took a bit of a break from that in my final year because I thought I better focus on my studies as well. But that's what I did, and I worked there every single summer for 6 years. And they offered me the job of running the office several times. Again, I was like, oh my God, so I didn't take it. But that was solid work experience. With all of that work experience, I did not have the confidence to apply for a graduate job because I was too afraid that I wouldn't be able to do it, particularly when you look at the job specs and I see some of the things on it that I am fearful of doing. So avoided all of that, didn't do it. I did try. I did attend a few traditional presentation skills courses. listened to some tapes, read some books, tried to force my way through, but it wasn't until I got proper help and support that everything changed, because some of those ideas are deeply ingrained in your brain, in your mind, and that's what we want to do on the Fearless Public Speaking program, is unlock all of that so you really are, sounds a bit corny, stepping into your full potential, but really that's what it is, allowing you to do the things that you want to do. In terms of the Fearless Public Speaking program itself, that is now live. It is launched. The page is up. So if you do want to book, the very long link is on the bottom of that slide, www.transformationstm.newzenler.com/courses/fearless-public-speaking-program. Or you can hold your camera, your phone camera, or your iPad mini. I've got my iPad mini. Open your camera, point it at the QR code. It will take you directly to that page. Now, for those of you who are signed up to join me on Tuesday, my suggestion is do not book yet, because you will get an additional bonus and a thank you for signing up. So you'll be saving £600 on the VIP program. So if you're joining me on Tuesday, wait and do that. If you're not, go to the webinar page, use the QR code. And of course, if you're watching this as a replay recording, everything I said about the VIP saving is null and void anyway. But yeah, you can check it out, have a look. It would be fantastic to have you join me. So if you have questions, if you're watching this as a replay, you have any questions, you can drop them into the comments if you want to do that, either on Facebook, and this will probably go up on YouTube as well, or you can drop me an email, marilyn@transformationstm.com. And if you want further information about the program, you didn't catch the QR code, you don't want to rewind and go back, easiest thing to do is go to my main website, www.transformationstm.com. I'll spell that for people on the audio, TRANCE, F for Freddie, so FORMATIONS, TM as in trademark, so transformationstm.com, and then click the red Watch New button at the top of the screen. Same for my blog, marilyndevonish.com. A panel will slide out, and just have a bit of a scroll, because I add things to it as we go along. But if you're in real time, you will see where you can register for the webinar if you want to join me on Tuesday. And I'm also going to add the page now that it's launched for the Fearless Public Speaking program. So that's how you can find out more. Just want to say thank you for joining me. Thank you so much for watching. And it may be the program isn't for you, but if you know someone who would like to improve their public speaking skills, whether they are just starting out or they are a seasoned presenter and they want to next level their skills, please feel free to share the link with them, send them this video. That would be really, really amazing, because there are so many live components of the program. Once we get underway, the doors will close. So it isn't one that you can just go, oh, I'll do it later in the year. It's running in real time. So if you would like to join us, do make sure you get yourself signed up and take some action. Come and join us. It will be absolutely wonderful to have you come on board. So that is that. And actually, yes, in terms of the live TV, just so you can see that I am not making it up, this is one that I did with Vanessa Feltz. That one was about working from home. I also did the Trisha show. We were talking about Rishi Sunak on that occasion, and I did the Talk TV one this week where we were doing a review of the papers. So public speaking is something I absolutely love to do, even though I was terrified for the first 30 years of my life. So it is absolutely a skill you can learn, and as I'm always saying, not just learn to get through it and, you know, drag yourself through the meeting and can't wait for it to be over. This is something you can absolutely learn to love and enjoy. And I remember one of my breakthrough session clients, I was saying there'll be a point where you love being on stage and you love handling questions. She laughed and says, no way. Couple of weeks later, and actually involves Gary Lineker. I invited her when I had a private members club in London before lockdown. I invited her to come to a talk where Gary Lineker was the guest of honor. Funnily enough, he's all over the press at the moment with the row with the BBC. And I'm sitting there. I saved her a seat. I mean, there's a front row, and then there's me, and I've got this saved seat. If you've ever been in a venue that is really full and it's free for all seating, the looks I was getting, or the number of people that came up and tried to sit there, and I had to keep going, I'm sorry, they're just on the way. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. She sent me a message saying, Marilyn, I'm so sorry, I'm running late. I was delivering a talk today, and I had so many questions in the live Q&A. I stayed on stage a bit longer to answer them. And I laughed to myself because it was the same woman who'd been telling me a few weeks before there was no way she would enjoy being on stage. There was no way she would enjoy doing live Q&A. And a few weeks after that, get a message from, well, I know I saw it on Facebook actually, that she was just on her way to the airport to go and speak at a massive event in Singapore. So flying from London to Singapore. That is how transformational this work can be. So I would love to have you come and join me on this journey. Get yourself booked on. I would say go for the VIP so you get all of the wonderful bonuses. For those of you on my e-newsletter list, there's a 10% saving. So that is now in your email inbox. I sent it over a couple of days ago. And yeah, come and join me. Alrighty, catch you all later. And I really look forward to working with those of you who are going to join me on the Fearless Public Speaking journey. And the final thing I'm going to say, the reason I call it Fearless Public Speaking is in the context of public speaking, if you're trying to do it and fight through the fear, it's a horrible experience. What I want people to do instead is be relaxed and calm and confident when they're on stage, rather than being fueled by fear. So that's really what the name is about. So come and join me. I would love to work with you. Catch you all later. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing this video as well. I really appreciate it.